So, a couple of days ago, Blizzard made some very big changes to the way that Berserk functions. We now have a very different rotation gameplay within Mythic Plus, and of course within the raid as well, though I haven't done extensive raid testing, so I don't want to kind of get too much into how the raid Berserk rotation might look, but I wanted to discuss how it might look in Mythic Plus, especially or particularly with the Night Fae Covenant. For those of you that have been watching the stream, twitch.tv/cybeslat, you will have noticed that I am a very big fan of the Night Fae Covenant, Convoke the Spirits, because it just seems to be so versatile and so strong, but I'll be discussing that more so in another video. With this rotation, with Convoke, you have a very big uptime on Tiger's Fury, and that's kind of like the aim that I'm going for with this rotation. So it looks like what you're going to be doing, and I was playing around with this quite a bit on target dummies and obviously just practicing in dungeons and whatnot, and it seems like what you can do is you can go into combat and you can kind of get your Berserk rolling as quickly as possible, get your Rip up as quickly as possible, and then Convoke straight off the bat, and it allows for very big burst damage, but then it doesn't kind of have that long kind of drawn out damage that is going to be more consistent overall and probably equate to higher damage overall. So what you want to do, from what I've worked out so far, is you actually want to build up your blood talents as quickly as possible. So you would go in from stealth, you would rake, you would thrash, you would then shred, or rake, shred, thrash. It doesn't really matter too much. You build up to 5 combo points, then you Berserk and Tiger's Fury in the same global, instantly rip, which will restore you with 2 combo points, and that'll be a Blood Talon snap, Tiger's Fury snapped, 5 combo point rip. You'll then have your Berserk active now. So now you start shredding. So from that initial 2 combo points that you had after using your Berserk, your Tiger's Fury, and then your rip, your 2 combo points, if you shred and you crit, then you basically insta-ferocious bite again. And you continue doing this. So every time if you shred and you crit, you ferocious bite. Because then that gives you your 5 combo points, right? So you shred, ferocious, shred, ferocious, shred, ferocious. If you don't crit, then I think that the best way to carry on the rotation is, instead of shredding again and potentially losing 2 combo points, you would instead look to build your Blood Talons again, right? Because you have to use another combo point generator anyway, but you're only going to get 1 combo point no matter what. So you would look to refresh your rake at that moment. So you would go from 4 combo points and having just shredded to then rake, or you might have to pool energy for a second, into a rake, into a ferocious bite, into a thrash. Now remember, this is for Mythic Plus, of course, right? You don't have access to Brutal Slash, which you would probably potentially otherwise do in, say, a raid environment. You would then look to Ferocious Bite again under the premise of this having been snapped by Blood Talons. Or potentially need to re-rip. What you would then want to look to do is Convoke the Spirits. Right as it works out that your Berserk is at like 4 or 5 seconds left. So you can pretty much get a full-length Convoke during your Berserk window anyway. But now what this means is that your Tiger's Fury has just run out, or is just about to run out, and then by Convoking, you will recast, or should hopefully recast, your Tiger's Fury, and then it means you get another like 15 seconds of Tiger's Fury, and then when that runs out, your Tiger's Fury, the original Tiger's Fury that you used at the beginning of combat, is now back up again. So you basically get 3 Tiger's Fury back to back to back over the course of that like 45, 50, 55 seconds of that rotation that you end up doing. So you end up getting about, I worked out, you could get like 90% uptime on Tiger's Fury over the course of combat in that like 55-second window, which will be really, really good if you can chain that effectively. This seemed to be like a really good solid rotation for me, doing a lot of practice. I did try, obviously, like, oh well, what if I Berserk and then every time, I try and Blood Talons with every Ferocious Bite, but I don't think that's going to work out to being the best way of doing things, because a 30% damage increase on your next Ferocious Bite, but having to rake and thrash like awkwardly at max combo points or whatever, is not going to be as strong as And like with limited energy pooling, I don't think that's going to be as strong as if you could just shred and bite, and then if your shred does not crit, then you would look to rake and thrash in between your ferocious bites. I think this is looking or I think this looks to be like the best way to do the rotation. Now, this is obviously with the Night Fae Covenant. If you're not using Night Fae, depending on what other Covenant you're using, I mean, if you're using Necrolord, I don't know why you're using Necrolord in Mythic Plus. If you're using Kyrian, that's pretty simple. You kind of just Berserk and then use that Kyrian ability with Berserk. There's no real like thought process. And what you would do is you would just do the normal Berserk rotation, but you don't add Convoke in at the end, right? Simple. And same again with like Venthia. You do the exact same thing. You look to like Venthia, Berserk, into Tiger Fury, into doing your rotation and whatnot. And that's just how you'd look to do things. So it's really only the Night Fae that you kind of latch on at the end of the Berserk window. So regardless of what Covenant you are, it shouldn't kind of impact too much based on what I've said so far. In terms of rating, it's probably going to be very similar. You want to try and get your rip up on the target as quickly as possible because you're going to have Sabretooth. Now you are also going to have the addition of Brutal Slash instead of Primal Wrath, which allows an additional combo point generator like Blood Talons procer. So what you would look to do is you would, again, from stealth, you would rake, thrash, shred. Then you would probably Berserk and Tiger's Fury on like 3 combo points. If those abilities crit, then you could potentially be on 5 combo points, and as time goes by, you probably will be on 5 combo points with 3 combo point generators. But at the beginning of the expansion, when your crit is low, you would probably rake, thrash, shred, Berserk, Tiger's Fury into a rip. Now this rip is at least 3 combo points big, and you can just renew that for the remainder of, the fight. Or, well, hopefully, that's the plan. With a new Sabretooth, maybe not. And you would then look to just build up, from there, you would then just look to shred and ferocious bite, and then I think whenever you are limited in, if you don't crit with a shred, then again you would look to rake into a ferocious bite or renew your rip if you need to, renew your thrash if you need to. If you don't need to renew thrash, then you would look to use your brutal slash as a buffer. And like your brutal slash kind of can just be like if you need to refresh your rake but don't need to refresh your thrash, then you would shred, rake, brutal slash. If you need to refresh your thrash but don't need to refresh your rake, then you would shred, thrash, brutal slash. So brutal slash is going to be a really nice filler for your Blood Talons in a raid environment, in a single target environment where you don't want to renew your rake or thrash if you've literally just renewed them recently. So hopefully that's a good kind of like little insight into what I think the new opener is going to be around the new Berserk. Though this is subject to change, we still, there's still kind of some tuning to be done, and anything could happen. But this is just what I feel like looks comfortable, feels comfortable, and kind of is working well for me so far. Though things could be subject to change, so just keep that in mind. And just so you guys, if you didn't know about the big announcement I've been throwing out on Twitter and whatnot, I now have a new merch store, so please feel free to check that out. I wanted to just kind of include this in the video at some point, just to kind of say, hey, if you want to support the channel, support the content and whatnot, and you want to pick up some new merchandise and look cool and stay fresh, then Sai's got you covered. There'll be a link in the description. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Looking forward to see you all in Shadowlands. Peace.